And you will hear it.
You will hear it, or else you'll hear my guess. Let me briefly explain how tonight's session will work. First, each presenter will have 2 to 3 minutes to make an opening statement. From there, we will move on to questions from our panel. Our panel consists of Jeremy Martin, who serves as the Community Outreach Coordinator and Counseling Manager for RCLF, Renaissance Community Loan Fund, and he previously served as Assistant Secretary of State for the state of Mississippi. He also has experience as an educator, having taught in both public and private schools in settings ranging from inner city Houston, that's Houston, Texas, right? Not Houston, Mississippi, to the Mississippi Delta and here in Tupelo. Jamie Stone completed 2 years of specialized training in simultaneous multi-sensory Institute of Language Arts and IMSLEC certified program based on the Slingerland method of reading instruction. She homeschooled her 3 children, dyslexic children, teaching them to read and write, and has volunteered with Decoding Dyslexia Mississippi for more than a decade, advocating for students with dyslexia and helping tutor children who struggle with reading and writing. Michael Bradley is a retired educator and football coach with more than 30 years of experience, recognized with honors including Teacher of the Year, Star Teacher, and Coach of the Year. He's also a retired colonel in the Mississippi National Guard, Mississippi Army National Guard, having served 2 combat tours in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Inherent Resolve, receiving honors and awards including the Bronze Star Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal, and Combat Action Badge. Thank you for your service. Their questions are not shared with the participants in advance of this evening. When a question is asked, the presenter to whom the question is directed will have 2 minutes to respond. The opposing presenter will then have 2 minutes for rebuttal, followed by 1 minute for a brief surrebuttal from the original presenter. If the same question is directed at both, we will simply do the 2-minute answers followed by the 1-minute surrebuttals on each. Now, the audience. After the panel has completed their questions, we will open the floor to questions from the audience. If you would like to submit a question, there are cards available on all the tables around. Please write your question on those cards and submit them to me. I will review submissions and select questions to be asked during the audience portion of the program. To help us stay on schedule, please have your questions written and submitted before the audience portion begins. The same format for answers will apply to audience questions. At the end of the program, each presenter will have 2 to 3 minutes for closing statements. Before we begin, I want to ask the audience to refrain from applause or other expressions of approval or disapproval until the end of the program so that we can maintain a respectful and focused environment for both presenters. It may sound counterintuitive, but I want to start off this evening with a comment that I think we can all agree on. I believe that both sides have in their hearts the best intentions for the children of Mississippi. It's unquestionably true that perspectives and prescriptions for the solution to the problems that we seek to solve will differ. But I believe that if we discuss those differences respectfully, in the way that iron sharpens iron, when we converse in the honest pursuit of truth, it will be revealed to us. Now, we're fortunate tonight to have 2 very experienced participants who have spent many years working in education and education policy. I'm confident that their qualifications will become evident through the quality of the discussion. Just before we begin, I'm going to recognize our Vice President Michael Bradley to tell you a little bit more about their background.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I want to thank all of you for being here and for showing your care and concern for the future of our children. We have 2 outstanding presenters here tonight. I'm going to introduce them individually. First, Ms. Leah Ferretti is an educator and education advocate with more than 16 years of experience in both public and private schools. She holds the Master of Education in Dyslexia Therapy from Mississippi College and currently serves as the Director of Mississippi Red Initiative focused on improving educational opportunities for students across the state. Ms. Ferretti has been active in education policy discussions for several years and worked with organizations focused on literacy and school choice. Miss Leah Ferretti. Dr. Chad O'Brien, Superintendent of Monroe County School District, and a lifelong educator with more than 2 decades of experience in Mississippi schools. Over the course of his career, he has served as a teacher, coach, assistant principal, and now superintendent. Under his leadership, the Monroe County School District has earned strong academic ratings from the state, reflecting continued improvement in student achievement. Let's give him Dr. Chad O'Brien.
Now, to begin the program, I would like to recognize Jeremy Martin to ask our first question.
Well, first of all, welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for honoring us for being here tonight. I want to start by saying a very simple fact. Mississippi has allowed school choice for generations. For many, many years, generations of families have moved from one residence to another.
Jeremy, I apologize. Do you think that the moderator would know the structure better than this? But we're supposed to do opening statements first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
We were just rolling with the punches.
No, to start off, we're gonna have a flip of the coin to decide who goes first.
Okay, heads.
The light. That's what I'm gonna blame. We'll see what I can blame this time. I knew I should have got a $50. Heads.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Lee County Republican Club, for hosting this conversation tonight, and that's exactly what it is. This is a conversation. I know people were like, is this a debate? It's like, no, this is a conversation, and we absolutely need more of this in our nation, because I promise you, at the end of the day, we're going to agree on more than what we disagree on. Can you agree, Dr. Brian? All right, so my name is Leah Ferretti. I am here to join you today as a fellow Mississippian. But first and foremost, I'm a wife, a mom of 3, a former school teacher, a dyslexia therapist. But like I said, ultimately, I'm a mom from Mississippi. And I believe that all children deserve the right to an education that fits them and their unique needs. My journey began about a decade ago when my now 6'3", 245-pound high schooler was struggling in kindergarten. We didn't know what was going on, but it took a couple of days off work, spent a couple of $1,000 out of pocket to get a dyslexia diagnosis. And I had to fight tooth and nail for that diagnosis, and I had to fight tooth and nail for my child to receive any type of services. And what I found as an educator, super simple. Not every system can meet a child's needs. And that doesn't mean that there aren't great schools and great teachers. That just means that some children need something different, and it's not a one-size-fits-all model for children, right? So as an educator, I knew how to navigate the space of education, and if you know, raise your hand if you're an educator. Oh, yes, we got some in the house, thank you. All right, so you know that in the space of education, if you're in it, you can navigate it. But there are parents, raise your hand if you're not an educator and you're a parent. That's a difficult space to navigate sometimes. So I had to fight tooth and nail for my child to receive any type of services, but at the end of the day, he still needed therapy. He needed dyslexia therapy. So I had to go back to school and get my master's degree, and my husband's standing back there, and when I told him, I'm like, hey, either we got to move or I got to get a student loan. He's like, well, I guess that's the lesser of the two evils. You're going back to school, sis. And that's what we did. I had to go back to school because I didn't have a choice but to help my child. And that's what a good Republican woman does, right? Any good Republican woman, any good mom is going to do what they have to do for their children to be successful. And along this way, I quickly learned that, you know what? This is part of the Republican Party platform. All right, we believe in freedom, and we believe that we should trust parents, because who knows their children best at the end of the day? A parent. And that's why I'm here tonight, so thank you all.
I'm gonna be offended.
He started. He was doing it soft pitch.
I knew that something was gonna go wrong, it'd be my fault. Several times. You're ready.
All right, thank you. I want to echo Ms. Ferretti's statement. This is a conversation, and I will agree with her. We're probably going to agree maybe more about things that we disagree. But I want to start with this statement. I do want to say, first off, thank you for letting me be here. I want to say thank you to my staff that's here. Mr. Kevin Threadgill, his wife, Amy, Tanya McDonald, Mr. Stevens, all work with me in the county office. And my wife, Nora, is here tonight. I say this everywhere I go. I try to say it without choking up, but the Lord Jesus saved my soul, nor saved my life. Seriously. This issue is not a Republican issue. I want to say that at the outset. This is not about being a Republican. I assure you, I am as a Republican as anybody in this room. I voted for Donald Trump not once but 3 times, and would love to do it a 4th time. The Constitution allowed it, okay? I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Republican. In addition to that, I pastor a Baptist church. I don't say that so y'all turn me off at the start, okay? But I pastor a Baptist church, and my allegiance is not to a party, it's to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I don't really know how you would call yourself a Christian and support the other party on a national platform. Just go ahead and put that out there, okay? This issue is not about being conservative. It's not about being a Republican. I'm here simply tonight to just give you some information. I'm fully aware of the fact that regardless of the information that I may give you or Ms. Ferretti may give you, there's still going to be a difference of opinion among some when this discussion is over tonight. And I want you to know I respect that. But I do want to say this. School choice is being billed as every parent can pick wherever they want their child to go. And that is just simply not the case. I'm afraid what we've gotten into as we get into a lot of political issues, we're simply not being told the whole story. What may be true for some is not true for all. Okay? If it really was that simple, if it really was as simple that every parent in the state of Mississippi is going to be able to choose wherever they want their child to go, with their child to be able to go there, I submit to you, you would have educators all across the state lined up to support it. The mere fact that you don't have educators, not politicians, educators that have spent their life in education are not lined up to support it, that should be a cause for concern. And I just want to discuss some of those issues with you tonight, what some of those concerns are. That's some of the things that I hope to share with you.
Well, thank you very much. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, Gary, you can start.
You sure this stuff?
I'm pretty sure, notwithstanding.
Again, we're honored that you all are coming to speak at conference tonight, share your expertise. Mississippi allows school choice for generations. Families for multiple generations have moved from one residence to another. Some have even purchased second homes or even rented second homes in order to afford better academic and athletic opportunities for their children. We've seen families for generations pay tuition to private schools and academies in order to afford better academic and athletic opportunities for their children. And we've seen families for generations sacrifice one spousal income in order to homeschool their children, in order to afford better academic, spiritual, and other opportunities for their children. Ms. Ferretti, the first question is for you. School choice has existed for many years in Mississippi. Is the question tonight, to what lengths should Mississippi go to afford those same opportunities to all of Mississippi's children, including those from low-income and middle-class families?
Well, you're exactly right. School choice has existed. It's only existed for some. If you're lucky enough to live in a district, that's good, right? If you're loaded, if you have enough money that you can afford to live in a district on the right side of the street, or if you can afford private school tuition, or a lot of people don't want to talk about this, if you lie about where you live. And unfortunately, that's what's happening in a lot of cases. I'm sure you get that too. And can you fault a parent for wanting better for their children? Education freedom benefits all children, especially those in a low socioeconomic status. That's who we're wanting to help. Children who don't have access to the same type of education that the next child has. Because all children deserve accessibility to a quality education.
Well, I would agree. Every child deserves access to a quality education. The problem comes in, everybody's not going to have the same access. You need to talk about, we need to define where we're going. If we're going to move, where are we going? If we're going to private school, let's understand this. It's not the parent that's going to decide that. The private school is going to decide whether or not your child is admitted to their institution. That is a very important point that is not being discussed. Again, it's just out there that as a parent, you're going to get to decide wherever you want your child to go. That is simply not true. And if your child does have special needs, or they have a handicap or a disability, the private school is not going to take them. Okay? They're not. If your child excels academically, or your child is really good at sports, they're going to have a really great chance to get in. Okay? But what we're seeking to say, that we're trying to eliminate, we're actually going to create a different divide. If we go with this thing about school choice and we leave it up to the schools to decide who they admit and who they don't, you're going to deepen the divide. It's going to create a greater divide between the haves and the have-nots. I'm a superintendent of a public school, and we have to service every child that lives in Monroe County. We don't get that choice. And I think some of you are aware of what I'm saying, but I think that's the thing that I would say on the outset, we do have choice. And everybody does deserve a great education, but we need to be careful how we define what those choices are going to be should we pass an act like this.
Well, back to the choice component of that only private schools get to choose and parents don't get to choose. I completely disagree with that statement, because right now you can say that your public schools choose who comes in there, because if you live in that zip code, that is your only choice. Now, as far as children with special needs, I'm a mother of special needs children. All three of mine have dyslexia, so I was lucky enough, I should play lottery more than I do, to have all three kids that have dyslexia. And we were in a district where the public school district didn't service my children. It was a good district, they were in a great school, they just didn't have the right services my children needed. So they had to go to a private school that's actually serviced them better than our local school district did.
Dr. O'Brien. A report by the U.S. Department of Education.
Can't hear. Can you go close to the
Speak up.
A report by the U.S. Department of Education cited by Mississippi Today indicated that Mississippi is currently out of compliance with several federal special education requirements, with the U.S. Department of Education identifying multiple areas where the state does not fully ensure that students with disabilities receive the services required under federal law. Given those concerns, and you've talked about it, how do you respond to parents of special needs students who feel their local schools are not meeting their children's needs and believe that expanded school choice options could help them to find a better setting to provide the free and appropriate education guaranteed under federal law?
Well, I think I would start by saying this. As a superintendent of my district, we take our responsibility extremely serious to meet the needs of children within our district. They have an IEP, that's what's in writing, that's what gets done. And we have a mandate, if you will, but we have a professional responsibility to meet that, and that's what we do. What I would say to parents, and that's my message to everybody, at the end of the day, I'm simply here to give you information. You need to do what's good for your kid. What you think is best for your kid, that's what you need to do. I want everybody to be informed how choices could adversely affect, and it may not be everything they're being told it's going to be. My concern is, I'm afraid that parents of students with disabilities, special needs, they're being painted sort of a pie in the sky. If this passes, then you're going to be able to pick any school that you want your child to go to, and they're just going to open up their arms and they're going to take them in. That is not true. Okay? That is just not true. If they can meet your child's need, they'll take them. But the choices may not be exactly everything that they're being billed to be. And I just think there's serious concerns with that. We need to meet the needs of the children. And if the parents have another option that meets their child's needs, no one would fault the parent for doing what's good for their kids. I certainly would not. I think every parent ought to do what's good for their kids. I do. I just don't know that this is the proper way to go about it. I guess that's my statement.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I think in a perfect world, all districts will do what districts do, and serve all of our students, and we know that's not the reality that we live in. And choice, I don't think anyone's painting a pie in the sky picture of you can go to any school that you want, or all the borders are gonna fall, and all these kids can go to you, or you can go over there. That's not what education freedom is. That's not what true choice is. Schools have to remain autonomous, whether you're public, whether you're private, whether you're charter, whether you're a micro school. You have to have that autonomy, and that's what makes education unique. That's what makes each school special, is that autonomy piece.
If I could add, I think one of the concerns that we have in public education, I want to mention this. When you're talking about public to private, all right, this is something near and dear to educators' hearts. It's near and dear to mine. And that is the idea about a teacher pay raise. I realize that wasn't your initial question, but I want you to think about this. The teacher pay raise, what we're always told is that there's a shortage of funds. The state can't afford a teacher pay raise. If this passes as it's currently written, and people that already attend private school are in turn given vouchers to attend private school, we are going to infuse $342 million into the state's education budget. $342 million that we apparently don't have to pay teachers, but we have it for this. Serious questions have to be asked about that. I'm not telling you.
Well, it's not about teachers, or it's about children.
Ms. Ferretti, this question's for you. In 2022, Arizona pioneered the largest school voucher program in the history of education. Under a new law, any parent in the state, no matter how affluent, could get a taxpayer-funded voucher worth up to tens of thousands of dollars to spend on private school tuition, extracurricular programs, or homeschooling supplies. In just the past 2 years, nearly a dozen states have enacted sweeping voucher legislation, such as Arizona's Empowerment School Scholarship Account, with many using this as a model. The first-year cost estimate in Arizona was $65 million. By comparison, the first-year cost estimate in Mississippi is $87.5 million. That cost ballooned to $332 million in 2023 and then $429 million in 2024. This resulted in a huge budget shortfall for the state of Arizona. Programs such as the Water Infrastructure Improvement Program saw a $333 million slash to its budget, as well as tens of millions in highway improvement projects in the fast-growing Phoenix area. Those had to be cut. Arizona's community colleges were slashed $54 million. How did this happen? Most of the applicants for vouchers in Arizona were people of means who already had their children in private schools and are using the vouchers to subsidize what they are already paying for. Considering these facts, and the fact that the Mississippi legislature already passed a law phasing out state income tax, how will Mississippi avoid this same scenario if school choice in its present form becomes law?
I think we first need to clarify the difference between a voucher and an ESA. All right, so you hear this, this voucher, this terrible word. A voucher are funds that go directly to a school, to an institution. An ESA is an education scholarship account that goes directly to the parent. So that accountability goes on the parent, not to institutions, because as conservatives, we believe in funding individuals, not systems and institutions. So that's the difference between an ESA and a voucher. Now, if you're familiar with Arizona, I know people like to use Arizona as the example because they were the flagship, right? They're the first ones that came out guns a-blazing with universal school choice. I don't know if you're aware, but last week, Arizona Department of Education came out and had to make a correction because they said about 20% of ESA spending was fraudulent. It wasn't. They got that zero wrong. They missed that decimal. If familiar with there's a decimal missing last year in some legislation. They missed the decimal. It's only 2%. 2% of unapproved expenses. And let me tell you how it works. When a parent gets an ESA, they have to pay out of pocket and then they submit quarterly reimbursements to the state. And someone at State Department approves those purchases that are supposed to be approved for education spending. And do you know what percentage of that was fraudulent? 0.3%. There is no other government program that has more accountability, less fraudulent spending than an ESA and a school choice program.
Your point is well taken. I'm going to go back to something I said a minute ago. With the idea of school choice, we're seeking to make sure everybody has equal access. The problem with that is going to be, we're going to feather the divide between the haves and the have-nots. Just like with private school, the school is going to choose who admits. I already spoke about the money that will be infused into the state's budget. We're broke, we don't have money for education, we hear it every year. But we've got this $342 million that we can put in to pay for these vouchers that we're going to hand out. What happens when you do that is public education is designed to support the common good. When you create a system of vouchers, ESAs, that the government is having fund, you're going to turn education, you're going to at least give it an element of treating children as an individual commodity. And it's no longer serving a public good. You're outsourcing our children, okay? And so way up, let's talk about money for a minute. I don't know if I'm out of time yet. Let's talk about money for just a moment. Dr. Piku was here, and I'm sure he appreciated me mentioning that. He said this. I'm going to throw this in for a second. But let's say that here at Tupelo, and I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say at Tupelo, they spend $20,000 per student. If $7,000 of that comes from the state, where does the other $13,000 come from? It comes from your local tax dollars. And when a student that no longer lives in Tupelo comes into Tupelo, where does that money? Yes, the $7,000 from the state is going to follow, but where is the $13,000 going to be made up? It's going to be made up for your kids that already attend Tupelo. Okay, your tax dollars are going to subsidize students that don't live in your district. You need to know that.
So that's a good point. So when you're saying another child is coming in, and the state portion is what's following the child. So if a child leaves one district and goes to another, the local and federal dollar stays at their home district, meaning their per pupil expenditure is going to go up. There's no even servicing a child. I know if you went to Walmart and Walmart said, hey, you don't have to shop here, but I'm still going to give that dollar amount that's associated with your zip code. I think as a business opportunity, they're going to look at it like, hey, yeah, I'm going to have more money to my bottom line. So when you're looking at that, that's not how school choice works. Because school districts right now get to decide who they let in. And in the state of Mississippi, you can go to any district you want. The home district has to sign off, and your receiving district has to say they can receive you. And that's not how it works. So you're not going to be able just to come in. You're going to have go through your process. And thank you.
Our next question is going to deal with calendar, school calendar. So if you're an administrator, as you are, Dr. O'Brien, your school year is 12 months, not 10.
That's right.
And during the summer, you're trying to decide how many teachers do you need per grade, per school to accommodate the number of students. So curious about how much time would you need to accommodate the 12,500 students whose parents might choose to send their students to your schools? Choice, first of all, whether or not you're going to accept those students, and secondly, how you can accommodate their educational needs. How early in the school year, May, April, June, how soon would you need to know that to make those decisions?
Well, I'm going to start with the first part of your question. If you heard that, and I'm going to echo something that's Ferretti just said, the school's going to decide. Okay? I want you to remember my opening statement. It's not parents are just going to get to decide where they want their child to go. The school is going to decide if your child can come. So that is false to build this thing as parents can just decide. To answer your question directly, February is hiring season. Now, I understand there is a movement among state leaders, maybe that if this does pass, that they're going to set a hard deadline, that you're going to have to indicate early on. Districts will absolutely have to know in February, March, at the very least, what their projected student enrollment is going to be for the following year. You can't have too many teachers, but you can't have too few. And you also need to know your student population, who you're dealing with, and what needs you're gonna have to meet. But again, listen to the question. Didn't say how soon can the parents declare the schools are going to decide which children they let in and which children they don't. You need very, very important. To answer your question directly, we need to know by February.
And thank you for that. And another something I think is very important to understand. Education freedom is bringing parents and educators together, because that's who needs to work together. Our parents and educators for what's coming to our children and to reach those goals. So thank you for clarifying that.
I don't know. February, that's not.
Mrs. Ferretti, many Mississippi homeschool families support educational freedom, but have expressed concern about including homeschooling in the school choice legislation. Their concern is that once government funding is attached to homeschooling, it could eventually lead to government oversight, such as curriculum requirements, testing mandates, and reporting standards. How do you address those concerns and ensure that expanding school choices does not unintentionally open the door to greater government regulations over homeschooling?
That's a great question, and I think ultimately that those parents who homeschool would have the choice. If you participate and are receiving any type of funds to help with curriculum, because if you homeschool, it's not cheap either. It does cost money, and those parents, homeschool parents, pay taxes as well. So if you participate, then there's going to be some type of stipulations or parameters around it.
I think it's an excellent question. What happens to private? You asked about homeschooling. Well, what happens to that when government funds get instituted into that sector? I have many friends that are in private education. If you doubt what I'm saying, ask them. If your child attends private, there are many private school educators that are not for this. I'm not saying that there's not some that are for it. I'm sure there is. There's people on both sides. But I have friends that are in private education, and they have specifically said, we don't want the government's money. We don't want the government telling us we can't pray before football games, we can't have 10 commandments, we can't read the Bible. We don't want that. We went private for a reason. There's a reason we don't take government money now. That's why they wanted that. And something I think we need to fully address with the homeschooling idea is this. Currently, there are no regulations. You come and sign your kid up for homeschool, nobody oversees that program. You just as a parent are entitled to that. And just like there are people that take advantage of other government programs, if there's not government oversight, I would like to think that every parent would have the best interests of their child at heart, okay? But let's live in reality for a minute. They don't. And if you don't think there are parents that will take advantage of a system that will give you $7,000 for every kid, and then they're going to take that and blow that on their selfish needs and not provide for the education of their student or their children, that's just not living in reality.
Like you said, that accountability piece absolutely falls on the parent. And yes, you've got bad actors everywhere. You've got bad parents, you've got bad teachers, you've got bad administrators. But do you cut off your nose as far as your face? No, you don't. Because at the end of the day, I have trust and faith in families and in parents to make those decisions.
Dr. Ron, this question for you. The Mississippi High School Activity Association will come out publicly against school choice. Stating that school choice will open up the floodgates for rampant recruiting of students for athletic purposes, akin to what we are seeing in college sports today with unlimited transfers of athletes from one school to another via the transfer portal. Last month in Jackson, a family whose child had attended Jackson Academy for 11 years since kindergarten filed suit against the school and its head of school, allegedly due to their son being removed from the school due to the father circulating information about the school allegedly practicing illegal recruiting. Allegedly, the father acted in response to his son not getting the playing time he thought his son deserved in sports. What is your view on the potential second and third order effects school choice would have on extracurricular activities and athletics and eligibility in school?
Okay, so the English study is right. It will. Exactly what will happen. If this passes as it's written, it's going to be open season recruiting in public sports and private sports. That's the reason the MHSAA has come out. And again, I want you to listen to what I'm saying. The MHSAA is a governing body that has dedicated its life and its history to high school activities in Mississippi. Not politicians, not special interests, people that have dedicated their life to that, and they're telling you that if this goes in, there's no way we're going to be able to govern or rule or regulate eligibility. And you've already seen that in neighboring states. Just recently, the Alabama High School Athletic Association has completely divided private schools and public schools when it comes to competing for championships. Why? Because they can't control the flow of kids. And where does this stop? If this goes in, you're going to see super teams develop all over the state. And you're going to see this. I'm going to go over here and play baseball because this got a chance to win a championship. And when baseball season's over, I'm transferred over here to play football because that's where the best football team is. This is going to happen statewide. The MHSAA is great.
As a lot of athletes said, oh, we love football in our house. The reality is, recruiting is happening today. Because children, if you can throw the football, you got opportunity. You can go anywhere you want. And in most schools, I will say something that I know very firsthand. If a child can throw football, we turn our head the other way, even if they live on the other side of the tracks or in another zip code. Those children have opportunity. Other children have opportunity as well. And as far as the High School Activities Association and Mississippi Mid-South Association of Independent Schools, they govern their own athletics and activities right now. Other districts are doing it, other states are doing it. Yes, they're regulating that because it should. And there's got to be parameters and protections around that. But the reality is, children who are good athletes have opportunity.
Okay, I want you to hear that again. If you're a good athlete, you have opportunity. That's what's going to happen in this situation. If your child's not a good athlete, the amount of choices that they have are not going to be the same for the kids that are good athletes. It's not the same choice for everybody. That's what everybody's got to understand. I'm not against school choice. I'm not. Every parent ought to do, you ought to do, I'm going to, I'm a father of 3. I'm going to do what I think is best for my kids, and I'm not going to ask the government or anybody else what they think about it. I'm going to do what's good for my kid. Every person ought to do that. Just understand it is not the same choice for everybody. Please understand that.
Mr. Moderator, we have time for one more among us.
Oh, we do, we have 30 to 40 minutes.
All right, I like the second that.
We only take out 25 of that.
I like that question. Ms. Ferretti, this question is my greatest concern. HB2 included in its provisions that the receiving school, private or public, would have the first right of refusal for accepting students and would be able to refuse all students when the school had determined when it reached quote unquote max capacity. We just talked about athletics. I think the same would go for academics. The 14th Amendment of the Constitution is very clear about equal protection under the law. Brown versus Board of Education 1954 ruling is incredibly clear that we cannot segregate students one against another. If a school district or a private school were to receive 10 requests for their students to attend that private school or that public school, and the school chose 5, maybe chose 1 or chose 9, but excluded anybody, what provisions, if any, protect the school district of the state of Mississippi, for one, from a lawsuit from the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, and secondly, a civil lawsuit, very similar to the one that you mentioned a moment ago that's happening right now in Johnson?
Well, right now, education freedom is a civil rights issue of our time. Because our schools are segregated right now. And if you say they aren't, you've got a blindfold on. We're segregated according to zip codes. If you live on this side of town, you live on the right side of town, you have access to this type of school. We should be segregating according to, because that's what we're doing right now. So how do you choose, like how the school district choose? That's up to a school district, how they choose. That's up to a school, how they choose. Because right now, they have parameters of who they let in, but nobody knows what those parameters are. You know, like I said earlier, in the state of Mississippi, you can go to any school district you want. The home district has to sign off, and the receiving district has to say they have capacity to serve that student. But right now, families don't get that information on what are the entry requirements into a school district. So saying that only private schools get to choose, oh, no, public schools choose as well.
Well, I apologize. I have a contact tipping in my eye. I'm not trying to flirt with anybody. I hope you hear the question. Okay? I want you to hear the question. The school, as House Bill 2 said, has the first right of refusal. It's not parent choice for everybody. It's not equal playing field. It's being built that way, but it's not. The school is going to decide who they have the capacity to serve and who they don't. And I'm much going to echo what Ms. Ferretti said earlier. It's going to come down what special needs, what handicap, what kind of athlete is this child. It's not going to be the same for everybody. So your point is well taken. And schools are going to be in a fix. Who we take, who we not. But they're going to take it based on who they have the capacity to serve. And again, if it's good for your child, I encourage you to do what's good for your child. Just everybody needs to go into it with open eyes. It's not as simple as it's being made out to be.
I'm just curious, who is they that is painting any type of fictitious picture of what education freedom is and is not? I have that question, because I know how it worked for my family. I know how education freedom was successful for my family. And no, it shouldn't be cookie cutter, because we know it's not a one size fits all. Every child is an individual. And so yes, every situation would be unique.
Dr. O'Brien, would you like to take just a minute to fix your contact?
I don't even know that I can fix it, so. Yes, I can. Just have to take it
Do you
out.
want to give it yourself?
No, I'm good. If I'm not bothering anybody else,
Like, trust again.
I'm okay.
He says he don't know if he can fix it.
Dr. Ryan, this question is for you. Ronald Reagan, the great communicator, was once quoted as saying, "The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm your government." With that quote in mind, why is the government in Mississippi and other states pushing school choice so hard? That's the overarching question. We've got 7 basic questions, additional basic questions considered. How will schools that are failing deal with the loss of funds that school choice will inevitably bring to these districts? What will happen to kids who can't afford to leave? How is it fair for public schools to have numerous accountability measures in place that you have tax money diverted to private schools do not have the same accountability measures? Won't the injection of public funds, I think you've already hit on this, but it's part of my question.
Yeah.
And the final thing is, won't the injection of public funds into private schools lead to the government wanting to have more say-so over how those funds are spent in those schools?
The answer to that is yes. Honestly, I've never known the government spend money on anything that they didn't want to say so in about how it got spent, and there weren't accountability measures. As a public school official, absolutely. You read in my bio, I'm very proud of the fact that the Monroe County School District has been an A-rated school district every year that I've been a superintendent. We take great pride in that. This is something that hasn't been brought up. We're talking about money, and in your question, nobody has mentioned this, but if this goes through as stated, this could affect your property values. Those of you that live here in Tupelo, you have a lot to be proud of. This city has a lot to offer people, and you have one of the finest school systems in the entire state. If your superintendent, I need my check after this, your superintendent is one of the most respected men all across this state, okay? Dr. Pico is well respected all over the state. But what happens? You know the taxes you pay in Tupelo. And I don't know about what they do here, but I know where I live in the Monroe County School District, as soon as the house goes up for sale, the realtor puts in the listing located in the A-rated Monroe County School District. We neighbor and border on 3 districts that are not A-rated. So what happens to the price of my house and my property when you no longer have to live in the A-rated Monroe County School District in order to attend the A-rated Monroe County School District? It's serious questions that need to be asked. And I think, there comes my contact, so I'll fix that. All right, great. It's serious questions that need to be asked. I'm not a ton. But if we're gonna divide the money, we're gonna send it, then there has to be accountability measures, absolutely. And there will be if it goes.
I completely agree about accountability, and honestly, I believe that our public schools have too many restrictions. There's too much government everywhere. We've got to get government out, because we believe that less government is the answer, right? Because we know how to handle our own issues in our own backyard and our own dining room table. However, I do reject the statement that I was totally lost track of my that.
Happens to be.
But back to spending, okay? So we're talking about, the money. I believe it was our state auditor, Shaun White, did a report on how administrative spending has gone up and our teacher salaries have not. I was a classroom teacher, my hands were tied. There was plenty of times I went to Walmart and I bought plenty of supplies for my classroom because my students needed it. But that money kept going up and up and up at central office, not to my salary. I think we need to look at the bigger picture of, yes, the funding mechanism for education, where it's going, and I think we need to look at that. Because as a teacher, we know that we are overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, and we've got to do better by our teachers. And I don't think the answer is more administrative spending in our central offices.
I would agree. And to echo your statement, Shaun White issued a formula of how your district should operate to administrative spending relative to teacher salaries. And I'm proud to say that the Monroe County School District was like in the bottom 10 out of 140-some districts. There's over 135 districts that spend more administratively than the Monroe County District. So we don't qualify for that. But I would totally echo the part about our teachers are left out. My wife as a teacher has been for 23 years, okay? And teachers are not paid what they deserve to be paid, but you need to pay special attention to this, okay? Because this is going to happen. If school choice, as it's being put out there, if it's really and truly everything they're making it out to be, and I'm sorry when I say that, I'm not trying to point at you, but as it's being built, if it really is what they say it is, why is it being considered that it's going to, I'm out of time. I'll finish that statement later.
We're going to go out of turn. I'm going to ask the next question because Ms. Ferretti and to some degree Dr. O'Brien hit my next question, so we're going to go and cover it. Ms. Ferretti, this question is for you. Many proponents of school choice point out that public schools waste an inordinate amount of money on administrative costs, and administrative salaries are out of control in some districts. In 2024, nearly 10% of public school district funds were spent on administration costs, which the state auditor stated was the highest percentage in the South. In addition, numerous districts spent up to an additional 28% on outside the classroom expenses. Again, highest in the South. Outside the classroom expenses generally means, not always, but generally means outside consulting firms, many of which are owned and operated by retired education administrators. This percentage is expected to rise in the future. It doesn't take a very smart person to connect the dots and call into question the very real possibility of patronage and the good old boy/girl backstretching existing at the upper levels of our public education system. What are your views on placing all administrative positions, including superintendents, on a pay scale similar to the one that the teachers are on, and placing a limit on the percentage of schools' funds that are spent on administration? And the second part of that is, what is your view on placing a limit on the percentage of public funds a district can allocate for outside the classroom costs?
I think I made that statement earlier. I absolutely agree that there's got to be some kind of mechanism and control of getting money to our teachers. And, I've worked in a few districts, and where the administrative load is insane in some districts, and hats off to you. We need Monroe County to be modeled in so many other counties, because that is not what's happening in our state. I worked in a district where they signed 21 teachers that year, and you know how many were considered highly qualified? 2. And you know what made us highly qualified? We had a degree in education. That made me a highly qualified teacher, and I don't think that really makes anybody highly qualified to do anything. That's insane. And the same year, they were supposed to give us 2 teachers, highly qualified teachers, a sign-on bonus. And that central office couldn't give us those sign-on bonuses because they didn't know where the money was. My husband back there got a U-Haul trailer, moved it to my classroom and said, "You're leaving." He's like, "They cannot pay you what you deserve. You're not going to be in that classroom." And sure enough, he did. He loaded that U-Haul trailer up with everything in that classroom that I purchased out of my paycheck. Right, teachers? We purchased every bit of our school supplies out of our paycheck, because it's not getting to our classroom. So I would agree with you 100% that it is, we've got to find a way to get it to the classroom. We've got to have, teachers shouldn't be spending the amount that they do out of their own pockets for resources for their students, but they do it because they love their babies. They love their students and they love their job. And they're going to do what they have to do to help them.
I would agree wholeheartedly. That's one of the arguments my wife and I've had before. Sweetie, why are you spending our money? Don't you have the EF card? Why are you spending our card? Plus, after a year, okay? Totally understand that. Let me go back to something. When we're talking about teacher pay, I want to answer your question directly. I'm totally fine with superintendents being put on a pay scale, just like teachers are. It needs to be merit-based. It doesn't need to be this way. You've been superintendent, so you get this much money. What have you achieved? What have you accomplished? What are you doing? What have you done? Scripture says, for much is given, much is required. Okay, what have you done with what you've been given? But let me ask you this. When we talk about paying teachers, pay special attention to this, because this is going to happen. Okay? Just last week, it was suggested that there's going to be a special session where school choice rides piggyback on a teacher pay raise. In other words, you can't be for paying teachers more money unless you also support school choice. You're going to have to support both. That's not right. If this was really what we are being told that it is, why does it have to ride on the merits of a teacher pay raise that we all know teachers deserve and should get? Mississippi on the bottom, and yet got scores of one of the nation's elite. We know that. Why is that? Why is that even a consideration that we're going to tie the two together? Let them stand independently. And whether you ever pass school choice or not, pay teachers a living wage and pay them what they deserve.
I think we agree on that. However, I want to cover the fear-mongering tactics. All right, so we talked earlier about property values, and that was the thought that came to my head. Like, where's I going? All right, so that if we had school choice, this is going to affect your property values. That's left-leaning fear-mongering at its finest. You're hearing that propaganda from left-leaning organizations in the Democratic Party and the Southern Poverty Law Center. That is not true. You look at any other state that has universal school choice, and property values have not been affected at all. And to sell people that bill of goods is, y'all, that's just not the truth. So as Republicans, we're not buying propaganda from left-leaning organizations. So make sure you consider that. It's not going to affect your property values. It hasn't affected any property values in any state that has universal school choice.
May I ask one more, and then I'll send it over your way?
Let's get you three more.
Are you sure?
Yes. Yeah, we don't have anything on any questions, right? It's not an interface. I don't want to cut our program short.
Yeah.
We're going to keep on the hot seat as long as possible, right?
Okay, all right.
Shoot from the up here.
Yeah.
I think everybody in this room wants what's best for all children in the state of Mississippi. And you have obviously shown that passion, so I appreciate that. If HB2 were to pass,
Right.
it has one impact in Monroe County. It has a very different impact, I think, in other parts of the state where there are just no real viable, better options for parents.
Right.
I think of places in Anderson Delta where you may be an hour or more away from a successful school district.
Right.
And even here locally, we have D and F schools too.
Yeah.
Where I could see many of those students flooding to districts like yours,
Yes, sir.
but leaving other students behind.
Yes, sir.
So I think there's two parts to this question, and I'd love to hear both of your answers to this. I'll let you go first, Dr. O'Brien. First of all, what do you do for those students that are locked into geographical locations that really just don't have an option whether they're adopted or not?
Mhm.
And then secondly, what does it do to neighboring school districts where students will be trapped there? Not everybody's going to get a voucher.
Right.
Will it make educational opportunities for those students even more scarce, not more enhanced?
Well, to answer your question, yes, it will. And I hope that's the point that I've tried to drive home tonight. It's not going to be the same choice for everybody. And I realize to an extent we have that now. But school choice is being billed as every parent is going to be able to choose where you want your child to go. And that's simply not true. You mentioned the Delta. There's a lot of schools in the Delta that suffer academically, that don't achieve all level that they would like to achieve. If you put this type situation in place, as you mentioned, go to a private school is really not an option for them because they don't have transportation. In some cases, they may be 40, 50 miles or further from the nearest private school. So that's really not an option for them. Your question simply goes back to something I've been trying to relate since we started the debate tonight, okay? It's not the same choice for everybody. And that's what everybody just needs to have their eyes open to, is that it's not a universal fix-all. There's a way to fix education. And I'd like to share that with you in my closing remarks tonight. I have a plan to fix education. This doesn't happen to be at the top of the list, but there's a way to fix it.
I'm glad you brought up the Delta. That's the most rural area in Mississippi, right? That's where I'm from. That's where I came across education and freedom. That's where it was accessible to my family and where it worked. Now, fast forward 10 years later, we live in a different part of the state where we have wonderful choices. We have great private schools, great public schools, some great options. And guess what? All three of the Ferretti children are in a public choice right now because in this season of life, that's where they are served best. Because I was able to access education freedom for my children to meet their unique needs, to give them the dyslexia therapy that they needed, to give them the small classroom sizes that they needed, they are able to be successful in a public classroom today. And I'll say that they're on a roll. We're struggling in algebra too, as most do, but they're successful today because in another season of life, I met their needs. I met them where they were.
I don't have a rebuttal to that, other than to say, your question speaks to the heart of what I've been trying to get across. The message that we're being given, it's going to be equal education for all. That's not going to happen. It's going to further drive the divide between the haves and the have-nots. There are simply people that are going to have access to choices that other people do not have.
I'm going to ask this question to Ms. Ferretti. The largest percentage of school tax money, or school money that comes from taxes comes from local property taxes in most districts. Local taxpayers pay based on their assessed land value, et cetera, et cetera. And these local taxpayers pay for their local schools. How would taxpayers who have the knowledge that they are paying taxes for a school that supports students outside of their local area to attend their local school on their money, how would this affect the ability of that school district to pass a bond issue when it comes time to pass a bond issue for educational improvements?
Well, majority of your districts don't receive majority of their funding local. Now, that is a piece of the pie. You have your state funding, your local funding, and your federal funding. That's what makes up the pie of education. Now, people pay state taxes, people pay federal taxes, and those funds are used to educate children. So, was this local autonomy, I guess is what you're asking, will people feel? How do they feel right now when other children come into their district from other districts or other schools? I don't think that people are upset about it, especially, not upset because I I've never heard it from another family that, from another district coming in that they have felt ostracized or not welcomed into the community.
Let me answer your question directly. The bond issue won't pass. They won't pass. When people know and understand that, as I used the example earlier, the taxes that you pay here in the city limits of Tupelo, if you pay taxes, Tupelo city taxes, your taxes are quite a bit greater than what mine are living in the county in Monroe County. And if I can send my kid over to Tupelo and your tax base has to support my child's education, yes, the state dollars will follow. We've already talked about that. But that is going to decrease the amount of money that can be spent per pupil on the students that attend your schools, which simply means right now there's kids attending, should it go in as passed. Some of you have students, grandchildren, whatever, that attend Tupelo right now. And the per dollar amount that is spent per student is going to decrease if people are allowed to come in your district that don't live there. Bond issues are not going to pass if that happens. So.
Back to the reality is, children are already coming in from other districts. Children already come in, the district will decide if they come in or not. So if you have a classroom where there's 15 seats there and there's only 10 children filling those seats, the overhead's not changing when you fill in a couple more.
It's Ferretti. It's my understanding that the school choice will be limited to 12,000 something students the first year. Is that correct? Do you know how they'll be changing?
All right, so I think you're asking like how it was written in House Bill 2 with the Magnolia student accounts. It's divided up the first year, it's going to be slowly phased in, that you have 12,000. So half in this pot that are already enrolled in public and half already over here enrolled in private. Now, it's income rating, right? So like the first and four go to the top. And that doesn't mean only 4 people can apply. That's all people can apply for these spots. And it's first come, first served, and every year it would be expanded on as far as their ability.
I don't know if I ever vote.
Okay. I want to express appreciation for our panel and the thoughtful questions that we posed our participants here tonight. I have just a few questions from the audience that I'm going to pose to you all. You see what's wrong with. So these two are kind of put together. I'm going to pose this to Dr. O'Brien. Dr. O'Brien, as someone who, this is not me speaking, as someone who doesn't support school choice, what is your solution to the problem of children trapped in failing school districts? And could you touch particularly on children with disabilities, for example? Other than more funding, the state taking over, or the family moving to a, quote, better district, also, what are some middle ground policies that you will support?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. The research is clear. The number one factor that influences education, academic achievement, it's not socioeconomic status, it's not race, it's not where you live. The number one factor that influences student achievement, academic achievement, is classroom instruction. The way you fix education is you put a highly qualified individual in the front of every classroom. And the way you do that is you pay them a living wage. I almost laugh when I hear state leaders talk about, we're going to recruit the best and the brightest minds to be teachers in our state. Not for $40,000 a year, you're not. Okay? No, you're not. They're not going to go to school for 4 years, study, get a degree, and then be put on the bottom of the totem pole. If you want to have a professional school, professional organization with driven results, and it takes time, there's no quick fix. I'm going to be the first to say there's positives to what Ms. Ferretti says. I don't mean to be the negative Nanny, and there's nothing good about what she says. I don't say that at all. But the way you fix education is not, let's just, throw out things that we haven't addressed concerns, we haven't addressed issues. You start with the people that are in the classroom. They must be highly qualified professionals, and the only way that's going to happen is you're going to have to pay them a living wage and pay them what they're worth.
I think we both agree on that, and I think the ultimate answer is there's no magic pill to fix any situation. Education freedom is a small portion of that answer, a small portion of that puzzle for education success, for economic success, and for Mississippi to keep growing and moving forward the way we are.
Mr. O'Brien, you want to go on?
I really don't have a rebuttal to that. I'm the first to say, I want to say again, I don't want to be the negative Nanny and say that there's not issues in our state that we need to fix with education. Obviously there are. That's why we're all sitting here tonight, because we're concerned about those issues, okay? But I'm very proud of the record that we have, and I realize all districts are not the same. They're not cookie cutters. All districts are not Monroe County School District. I get that. I've spent my life there for 26 years. You know, we've talked about money. We've talked about taxes. The Monroe County School District, I'm proud to tell you, we lowered taxes. We operate on 39 mills in Monroe County, and we have 40% in our fund balance. And some of you may not know what the fund balance is, but you're required to have 7% of your budget for the year. You're required to have 7% in your balance. They recommend, the state auditor's office recommends you have 14%. Monroe County has 40, okay? We take care of what's entrusted to us no matter time. But there are issues, and we need to work together to try to fix them. I wouldn't deny that at all.
Thank you. I'll pose this question to both of you, in which case, we're going to do 2 minutes, 2 minutes, and then 1 minute, 1 minute. Okay? Assume there will be fewer students in public schools. Won't there be a corresponding reduction in the expense to the school? Also, will not the public schools still get federal funds even if they lose student funds?
Yes, and if there's a reduction in student population, there'll be a reduction in the amount of funds that come into that school. The state has a formula, it changes every year to throw out a rough number, let's say $7,000. So if you lose, if you lose 100 students, you've lost $700,000. That's the way that works. If you have that many people, that's why it goes back to the question we were asked earlier, when the school districts need to know. We're going to have to know in February if we're about to lose $700,000 or $1 million or more, $2 million, whatever we're going to lose in student population, $7,000 for all those kids out of the door. Then we need to know how that's going to affect how many teachers we can actually afford to employ.
It's not gonna cause this. This
And I
one.
think that also raises a concern of, that's a bigger issue. If families are leaving and growing from a school district, that's a way bigger issue than school choice. And that's what I think we need to take a look in the mirror, and that's real accountability. When people can vote with their feet and they are not receiving what they need, it can go somewhere else, that is true accountability. And through that, there's been over 200 empirical studies that show that school choice, education freedom increases, it betters, it improves all of public education. And as conservatives, we believe that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
I don't have a rebuttal to that. I'm sorry, I don't have a rebuttal to that. I believe competition is good for the soul. I do. I believe every day of my life that I wake up and go in the office, I believe I'm competing against districts and superintendents all across the state, because I feel it's important that we make Monroe County everything that we can make it to be. Okay, and I feel like if we don't do that, then there's going to be consequences to that. Ain't my job. So, anything that I tie my name to, we want to try to make it the best we can make it. So I wouldn't disagree with that at all.
He's wearing the ring to prove it, that he doesn't believe the competition.
All right. This is the last question. I'm going to direct to Mrs. Ferretti, and then after that, we're going to have our closing statements. Assuming school choice passes, we've had some discussion before about some of the costs that may be associated with it, projections which may be incorrect. Where would finances come from for choices?
Well, it depends on what it looks like. So right now, we know that House Bill 2 died, right? So right now, we're spending off the days or speaking on all these theoreticals. So the big question is, where's the money coming from? Well, right now, you're already paying taxes. Right now, you're already paying for systems that you may be using or you may not be using. And as a taxpayer, you have the right to have access to an education that fits your child's unique needs.
That's a good question. Where is the money coming from? As I stated earlier, if the 50,000 students in Mississippi that already attend private schools are getting vouchers, that's going to infuse $342 million additional dollars into the state's education budget? It's a really good question. I wish I had an answer to it. Don't know. I can't snap my fingers and get $342 million. And those numbers come from MPE, if you wonder where I'm getting those. But if I don't know where that number's coming from, so I guess, somebody else would have to answer that. But that's a really good question. But I think the first thing we need to do, if we're going to talk about money, the first thing we need to address is the teacher pay raise. Let's do right by our teachers, and let's not hold hostage a teacher pay raise so we can piggyback school choice or something we want politically off what we know our teachers deserve.
I'm really involved for that, but, where's the money coming from? Just like teacher pay raise, where's the money coming from? That's a great question. Where's the money coming from for better roads and bridges? Where is it coming from? It's coming from your pocket, coming from my pocket. That's where it's coming from. Now, do I have a complete answer to that? I'm just a mom, I'm just a teacher, I'm not a lawmaker. So hopefully they'll figure that out, because I believe in one of the meetings when they were going back and forth, right? Like, using that, like, oh, I'm gonna give the teacher this, I'm gonna give the teacher that. I think we just need to come to an agreement and settle on it. I mean, we've got other things, where are we gonna get money for hers? where are we getting that from, right?
Well, as somebody that's about to qualify for PERS, must know that.
So our audience questions. We're going to have 3 minutes for closing statements, and Mrs. Ferretti, when the board talks to begin the debate, we're going to begin the closing.
First of all, thank you all for coming out on literally the coldest day in the past month, right? So thank you all for coming out today. I've been freezing all day. I'm freezing right now. I can't wait to get back in the car with my socks and go on my feet. But thank y'all so much for coming. Y'all, education freedom looks different for everybody. All right? Choices look different for all of us. And that's what they should look like. They should be different. It's about trusting parents and not trusting systems. And President Ronald Reagan, I'm glad you brought up, man, that's my favorite Republican.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
He said that we trust the people.
Amen.
Isn't that what education freedom is about? Isn't it? About trusting people, trusting parents to make the right decision for their families. Because I believe in that. I believe in people at the end of the day, and I believe that if you believe in people at the end of the day, and I believe every Mississippi family deserves the access to an education and the opportunities that my family had access to. Thank you all.
Well, I will echo the statements. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight, Ms. Fred. Thank you for your kindness and your words. And look, I want to say it again. I'm aware of the fact that there's people in this room that probably have disagreed with everything I've said tonight. That's okay. That's okay. I'm not here to force anything on you. I'm just somebody that I have always lived my life that I don't take things as face value. I need to know the why. Okay? I ask my kids that all the time. I need to know the why. Everybody here, I will be clear, I can't say this plain enough. I know I'm in the opposed position. I can't say this plain enough. Everybody here should do what you think is best for you and your child. You absolutely, 100%, that's what you should do. And nobody would ever fault you for that. I would be the last person to do it. But there are serious concerns and questions regarding this as it is currently written. It is not the same choice for everybody. That's how it's built. Everybody gets to choose. Everybody doesn't get to choose. It's not going to be parent choice. It's going to be school choice. It's going to create a deeper divide between the haves and the have-nots. It is going to make your local tax dollars subsidize students that don't live in your district. There are no accountability measures for private. It is going to affect sport in Mississippi. It is going to affect eligibility. You are going to see super teams develop. You are going to have trouble governing eligibility. And I want to say this. No one that knows me, okay? No one that knows me would ever associate me with being left-wing anything, okay? Not that this matters. When I tell you I'm a conservative, I'm King James 1611 conservative, okay? I'm pastor of Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. I'm as conservative gets. it will affect your property values. That's not fear mongering, that's the truth. You don't have to live in an A district to attend an A district. All of a sudden, your property values are not worth what they were. All I'm asking you to do tonight, the issues that have been presented before you, just think them through. Before you blindly, and I don't suggest anybody would, but before you blindly are told, you have to support this, or you're really not a Republican, you're a liberal if you don't support this, that is not true. Everybody in this room can make up your own mind and your own decision, and at the end of the day, again, I encourage everybody here, you do what's good for you and your children.
I want to thank our participants for being here tonight, for your thoughtful discussion and the respect that you gave one another in the audience. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank Michael Bradley, the vice president of the club. It's easy for me being president. Vice president is the program director. I give this man up to take credit for everything after he does all the hard work. That's pretty nice. But I want to thank you for keeping the brains behind the format of this evening. I want to thank all of you. So many of you have driven so far tonight and have far to go. I'm praying for y'all's safe travels. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and I hope you have a good evening.
Oh, did you say